Hello everyone, before we get started into this next episode, I just want to give a big thank you to those of you who have decided to sign up for the Extras membership at my Buy Me a Coffee account. It's gone a long way towards continuing to support the podcast by paying for some of the normal monthly maintenance stuff that goes along with doing this podcast, and I really hope that those of you that have signed up are enjoying the extra content that is coming to you each month, usually in the form of at least one video episode and another audio episode. The feedback I've gotten so far is that people have been enjoying the Follies episodes, and also there's been some people that aren't even Falconers I know that signed up to listen to the ratting content from the Molting Tales stuff, so thank you all for that. And pretty soon you are going to have other stuff that's going to be available to you as well for those of you that have signed up. You're going to have an audiobook pretty soon, and also there's going to be some other stuff that's going to be coming down the pipeline as well. So thank you again for signing up for that, and if you haven't and are interested in doing so, just go to my website at falconrychronicles.com, click on the Would You Like to Support link. It'll take you to my Buy Me a Coffee page, and you can sign up there. It's just $10 a month, and you'll get new stuff to listen to on top of the episodes that are already released every week. So thanks again so much, and appreciate you. And now on to this next episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast.
So I had my female out, Bella, with my hair sock and our buddy Cody. And he'd already caught a squirrel, so it was my turn. So we got the bird out, walking through the woods, and I thought he was going in on a squirrel because he just swooped in on the side of this tree, and it went up in a tree and came back for a second pass. So I run over there, and man, big old coon up in the top of the tree, and I tried to call him down with food, the lure, everything, and he would not come. And like I remember saying, I don't even want anything to do with this coon, but figured the dog did. So luckily I looked up in time, because that coon come free falling and about bounced off the top of my head.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast, and this is another episode that just for whatever reason, circumstances with the release schedule the way I've had it, just haven't had a chance to really fit this in anywhere decent as far as when to release it. But this episode was recorded actually at the very end of 2023, right after our Evansville meet that we host every year here in southern Indiana, and basically got a chance to sit down with him and talk about breeding dachshunds from his point of view, some of the different things that he's dealt with in regards to that, his own falconry, amongst a lot of other stuff. And ironically enough, this was also the same day that I ended up with my second dachshund from him also, so you'll hear kind of funny mentions and kind of alluding to that during the episode as well. But anyway, I figured this would be a good time to go ahead and release this now that there's been a big long break from dachshund content, and I knew I needed to get this out at some point. But like I said, the stars just feel like they've aligned to go ahead and get this out to you all, and I hope you enjoy it. So enjoy this episode with Kevin Stahler of Country Critter Kennels, and here we go. I'll start off with the customary cheers, as we usually like to do, and start off with the customary, I guess, making people think that I'm an alcoholic when I'm really not. But no, man, it's I love days like this. I really do, because days like this are kind of what kind of bring just overall, I don't know, like, I don't want to say meaning necessarily, but purpose. I mean, whatever word you want to choose. This is like, days like this are the reason why I enjoy falconry so much, because I get a chance to bring other people in from other parts of the country to a field meet, and especially one that I help host, and get people introduced to each other, acquainted, a few people leave with game in the bag, so on and so forth. And yeah, man, I mean, like I said, days like this, really enjoy them, and I hope you all had a good time today.
Oh, it was a blast.
Yeah. As far as as far as everything else goes, I mean, you were kind of talking a little bit about just some of the different experiences you've had in different field meets in different areas. I mean, comparatively speaking, I mean, how would you, say your overall experience with this one was compared to some of the other ones you've been to?
Oh, this one was good. I mean, kind of more family-ish feeling between the members, and seems less political and uptight like some others that I've been to.
Really?
Yeah.
Like as far as, I mean, you don't have to name states or particular clubs or anything like that, but I mean, I do like talking about this kind of stuff with different falconers, because for people that are kind of getting into it or kind of maybe haven't gone to a meet for their first time and have yet to kind of experience that first, vibe or whatever. Oh, yeah. I mean, what do you like looking for in particular? Like, what do you kind of try and, I don't know, like for meets that you enjoy and stuff, what are some of the qualities of those meets, particularly for you, that you enjoy?
People are willing to take you. Like some places, like you got to know this person and know this person to be able to go beat brush for that little group. This is more, you show up, you're interested, just go with a group of guys and go and ask questions to them versus having to sit back and twiddle your thumbs and hope that a group's like, hey, come with us.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it's, I've experienced that some with different meets that I've been to as well. Like, I know for me, I don't like necessarily going to a meet and having to basically iron everything out for myself when I go. That's why I know for me, it was nice having a few people that run dogs, particularly dachshunds, that agreed to go ahead and come to the meet today, because it was going to be easier for me to organize a group. Yeah. And I understand why some, different clubs structure meets as kind of like a free-for-all type of scenario, because you just never know, kind of what people's interests are. It's really hard to plan ahead, especially when there's a lot of people attending and stuff. But for a smaller meet like ours, it's a little bit more of a, I don't know. I don't even know if you can even qualify what we do here as like kind of like a regional meet even. But it's easier for me to go ahead and just orchestrate and organize a handful of people with a specific purpose kind of coming in. Everybody else can kind of do their own thing, but I like just being responsible for just a core few people.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as, if that's your preference, I mean, you've only really been in falconry for a handful of years now, right? Like,
this is my first year as a general.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've only done it for, going on 3 years falconry wise.
Yeah. So, I mean, how many meets have you gotten a chance to really go to at this point?
I've gone to probably 5 different ones. Mm-hmm. And this one and the one in Ohio that I'd been invited to go to, and then the other ones you just kind of show up. And man, when you just show up, those are the ones that is like pure chaos, trying to figure out what's going on, where to go, who to go with. And if you got a bird, it's real hard to figure out where you're going to hunt if you don't know the area. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, are you still kind of the preference that you still prefer to bring a bird and actually go hunting, or do you? I don't know. Like, I know for me, especially when I'm hosting a meet, like I personally don't care if I end up flying my bird. I care more about other people coming in, having a good time and being a good host and stuff like that for like, our local meet, like this one, for example. But I mean, if you're going to go to a meet, are you kind of one of those people that always insists on, I'm not going to go to a meet if I can't fly my bird? Or
it depends on the distance of the meet. Mm-hmm. Like if it's far, I don't really just want to drive really far to not fly bird.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's in a couple hours, I can go and just run my dogs for people. That's if people there can have birds that can fly over dachshunds.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, for you, there's got to be a purpose to go X amount of distance.
A far distance, yeah. I mean, a couple hours, I can just go hang out. I mean, but if it's far, I need to have a bird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, how many hours do you think? I mean, so is kind of 2 to 3 hours travel distance kind of your cutoff for that? Or
4 hours would be
4?
Probably far enough that I'm going to go run, just to run dogs. So,
gotcha. Well, I mean, as far as, some of the different aspects of things I mean, have you ever thought about just going to some of the meets that have been a little bit further, not even worry about flying birds, but more just focusing straight on your dogs? Have you thought about branching more into that kind of territory, or?
I've discussed it with my fiance, but we've never pulled a trigger to go to any. So
Yeah,
but I'm not against it, but I mean, also to just know somebody there would be different too.
Yeah, just having familiar faces and stuff.
Instead of just going there and then like hoping somebody let you run your dogs under them. I mean, because you may get there and they'd be like, nobody here really wants to run over dogs. Like, okay. And then you drove all that far to just go beat brush.
Yeah, well, and someone like you too that's not on really social media and a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, you're only connected with so many people, you know, kind of ahead of time in some of these different states and stuff too. So it's like, I'm sure someone in your position, it's a little bit harder to be able to vet that in advance too.
Oh yeah, not having any social media, you don't know when meets are. It did put a hinder of me starting in falconry because everybody's all find me on Facebook or come find us on Facebook and send me a message on this or that. I'm like, so it did take me an extra year to even get my foot in the door because I didn't have social media. So I really had to pound the ground to get people interested to be my sponsor.
Well, and so kind of branching into that a little bit then, like as far as, you know, I mean, is there a particular reason why you're still kind of so set against it? Not that, I mean, I'm criticizing it, but like, you know, because personally, I'm not a huge social media fan either, especially after the last few years. I've tried to be on it less personally as well. But I mean, even just like having an account where you just pop on every so often to check like if there's any events to go to or this, that, and the other. I mean, is there a particular reason why you're kind of just still against, you just don't even want to set foot in that realm at all?
No, I don't want it. As far as social media goes, I use YouTube, and that's it. And I don't use anything else because it isn't nothing but a bunch of hatred and political this or political that. And even if you try to follow other groups that aren't, somehow that stuff always weasels its way into your life in there. So it's just easier not to have it.
Yeah.
I mean, it does kind of hinder contacting people or getting in contact with other falconers or dog breeders, but you just do the little extra legwork and you don't have to use social media.
Yeah. Well, I mean, define a little extra legwork. I mean, like you're kind of delving into a couple of these other realms, you know, and trying to kind of make a little bit of a name for yourself in regards to, you know, the breeding world and some other stuff. So like, that being said, I mean, how do you try and promote yourself if you're not, you know, in those worlds? I mean, what are you trying to kind of, what avenues are you trying to use? Just word of mouth or?
A lot of word of mouth.
Yeah.
A lot of word of mouth. And I do like to be able to go and show my dogs because then the dogs speak more for themselves than somebody really talking to me because they can see what my dogs can do. The pups that I've produced so far have all panned out correctly, I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
because you have one of them, and
yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I'm just curious to find where people's kind of mindsets and approaches are at, because as time goes on, it becomes a little bit harder. You know what I mean? To sometimes logistically be in more than one physical place, you know, at a time. And as much as I personally hate, you know, putting myself out to a certain degree now on social media and different aspects of, you know, kind of like public eye or whatever, you know, there's a certain amount of give and take with that. And I know for me, it's hard to, like I said, just kind of weigh the benefits versus the pain in the ass factor. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to a lot of the stuff, I kind of try and do the bare minimum in a way when it comes to, you know, not spending a bunch of extra time, you know, being kind of sucked into the whole media realm, you know, and stuff. But like, how many meets do you try, or you think you're going to try and continue to make like per year to kind of keep the word of mouth thing going? Because I mean, it's not, I understand it's not impossible to kind of go that route, because it's such a, especially with dachshunds, it's like such a niche, you know, realm where there's not too many names out there.
Yeah.
But
I'd like to go to like at least 5 a year.
yeah,
I mean, I got kids and stuff, so the weekends, a lot of them are on the weekends. I have my kids, and it's hard to go then.
mm-hmm.
I mean, but that is what it is with that.
Sure.
But I mean, like come here, I've done the Ohio meet, Kentucky. I'd like to get down to the Tennessee one at some point.
Just as far as falconry or dachshunds?
Take them for both.
Really? Is there a field trials down in Tennessee?
I don't know if there's any field trials, but if there are, I'd like to take them down there. I know there was a handful of people from down there that had some, but I don't know if they actually do trials like they do up here in Indiana and other places.
Yeah, I mean, the only trials that I ever am aware of are the ones that are mainly just on the AKC website, and I don't know how much that really gets like updated. I don't know if there's like other extraneous ones that don't like make it on that website or what.
There may be ones that are like a smaller club is going to have one, like a small AKC event. That's an AKC registered event, but it may be a small club that they don't keep up the AKC website.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kentucky's Dachshund Club, they're not a real big club. There's only a handful of members in it. So, I mean, but there's other ones that they got 50, 60 members too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, the one that we went to in Pennsylvania, it seemed like there was, like that whole area seemed like there was a decent amount of members like in that one and stuff, but I don't.
Yeah, I've been to that one a couple times, and it's a good trial. And it always seems to have quite a few turnout of people, but a lot of them, I mean, I'm not even sure where some of them are from because I'd go to another trial in Ohio and it's 90% of the same people at that trial. So it's hard to say where they all go because some of them drive all the way to California for them things.
Sure. Yeah. And I was kind of talking to Paul a little bit about that yesterday. And, he was kind of talking about, honestly, like for the most part, if you're in the dachshund realm, if your dogs continually place okay or do okay, like as far as the field trial aspect of things goes, like here in the Midwest, that's where a lot of your competition, like bigger competition and stuff is anyway. I mean, personally, I don't know, I haven't personally been able to vet, how much truth to that there is or not, but I'm going to take his word for it because he's been doing it way longer than me, obviously. So,
oh yeah. I think he said he's been doing it for 25 or plus years.
Yeah.
But we have a bigger population of cottontails out this way. So like when you get in them areas where there's less cottontails and stuff, I mean, your dogs, it'll be harder to put game under them. And you're not going to run a dachshund on jackrabbits.
Yeah.
Because they'll outrun them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you might be able to keep one moving with one if it, ever stops again, but
yeah,
or gets holed up in something or whatever, or gets in some weeds or some crap or something. But yeah, no, like I said, I was just curious. Like, I didn't know, how, I know you're trying to, kind of continually build kind of the rep of your kennels and stuff, and I know you've produced what, like, just a handful of like 5 litters at this point?
5 puppies.
5 puppies total?
5 puppies so far.
So a couple of litters, basically. Yeah. So, I mean, basically, continuing to build up on that and everything. I didn't know if even though now that your dogs are kind of already, field champion status and stuff, I mean, are you going to continue trying to work them or just to kind of keep the presence up, or are you going to?
As a falconer, it makes sense for me to just, if I have a dog that needs to be titled, that's the dog I'm going to take.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any reason to chase points in field champions.
Sure.
But if I have a dog to take that I need to get a field champion on, I'll take my other dogs and run them in the field champion classes, but I'm not going out of my way to drive hundreds of miles just to get 10 more points on my dog that, for me, it doesn't do anything. Mm-hmm. Like, I got the field champion. That's what my dogs needed. And I won't work another dog till I have to take another one to the field trial.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm still personally trying to figure out how important it really is to me. You know what I mean? One way or the other. I'm still kind of like on the fence about it. I mean, there's a part of me that eventually does want to potentially be willing to stud my dogs out or whatever, and I understand the implications of having that status with your dogs and stuff, and especially whenever you're looking to breed them. But at the same time, once you, like kind of what you're alluding to, like from the falconer standpoint, it's like I feel kind of like, a falconer's more and more falconer's word for whether or not my dogs work well or not is worth just as much technically as far as reputation and any kind of field status would field champ status would give them.
Yeah, I mean, the people that do trialing, that's what they do. Like that's their hobby. Great. I mean, keep going, do what you're doing. But I mean, a falcon. I mean, to keep going back and back and back every year, it's always in the off season of falconry anyway. So it's just good practice for your hunting dog in the off season to keep him on point. And I mean, that's the only reason that as a falconer to keep going back to him is if you want to just do repetition of keep going back every one you can get to, it's just good practice for your dog. So, because I don't want to chase points. I don't need to chase points.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get it. And that's kind of, I don't know, overall, that's kind of where I feel like I'm leaning more towards is, it might be somewhat of a priority, but getting them more and more, mature as far as their field readiness and the actual practical application for their hunting skills in the field with the bird and all that kind of stuff still to me is more important, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And with field trialing, you can tell the difference between falconry dogs and field trialing dogs. And sometimes it nips you in the ass because your dog wants to find every rabbit for you because that's his job versus I need to find one bunny, not all the bunnies. I mean, so sometimes it works against you and sometimes it works for you.
Yeah.
It just depends on the situation. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I agree. I think that, I don't know, at least out of one of the dogs that I have, it would be cool to go ahead and get it, at least one of them, that degree of status, just to be able to say, if nothing else, just to say it was another, I don't know, thing.
That he has it.
Yeah, he has it. And just another bucket list thing. I mean, like I said, as far as the list of priorities, as far as where that ranks in that whole bucket list scenario, it's kind of like middle to lower.
Yeah.
I think if it happens gradually, it happens gradually. But anyway, so I mean, not to digress too much, but I am curious though. I mean, you've been in falconry for just a handful of years, and I mean, as far as the whole realm of breeding and stuff goes, I mean, why exactly? I mean, I know you breed other, you breed Rottweilers and stuff too, right? So, I mean, why did you decide to even get into the whole realm of breeding dachshunds then?
I wanted to try to produce something that I thought was correct. And in my opinion, this is how I wanted my dogs to look. And so we found a female that is an amazing dog. And her and my male have produced fairly, decent pups. And I mean, your pup's got one win. So being the first time it's ever been to a field trial.
At least, for me, I've been pretty happy with how they performed and stuff, but I didn't know if there was a particular instance or a particular thing that inspired you to kind of want to be like, okay, well, in order for me to kind of get what I want though, or continue to get what I want, or if this was like a particular way of you just kind of giving back to like the dachshund community or something, or contributing back. I mean, I didn't know if there was a particular bit of inspiration that you really had to make you decide to want to, kind of do the undertaking, because like as Teddy herself said, you don't get into breeding dachshunds to make money.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's more of a, it's more of just a passion type of thing. So what was the kind of the ignition for that for you?
To be able to create a dog for myself. Like I wanted to find two good bloodlines and bring them together to create a dog that was perfect for me. And if other falconers end up with them, wonderful. I'm like, really, it's just to breed the dogs for myself. Because, I mean, dog breeding, there's no money in dog breeding. I mean, you make a little here and there, but not enough to sustain. It's not a sustainable income for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so like even with like bigger dogs or bigger breeds, like with the Rottweilers and stuff like that, and I mean, like I remember Teddy saying something to the extent of, yeah, I mean, if you really want to even try to make money, breeding dogs or whatever, it's like you'll just do like golden doodles or something like that. You know what I mean?
The Rottweilers are my fiance's thing.
Yeah,
like she's a Rottweiler fanatic.
Gotcha.
So like that's more her realm.
I gotcha.
I get to play and spoil and roughhouse with them, and then she gets the headache of that. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. Well, I mean, how do they get along with your other dachshunds? I mean, do they all get along fairly well together? Do you have to keep them separate, or?
We keep most of them separate because the Rottweilers think they're toys, and it's like that. The big bear with the bunny rabbit in the woods squeezing it too hard kind of thing. Gotcha. So like because one of our male Rottweilers, he's just a big dope. So like he don't realize how big he is. So he like tries to mush him to the ground with his paws. So like it's just, they get along. It's just safer for the dachshunds if we keep them separate.
Gotcha. Is there a specific way that you try and go about doing that? I mean, is it harder in a smaller to mid-sized house to do that? Do you keep them like in separate like kennel areas?
Oh yeah, my fiance has her Rottweilers at her house. Yeah. I have the dachshunds at my house, so it's two completely different houses. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, it's easy to keep it separated.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and to be honest, like I remember when I came down, to the house to get Horace and stuff, like I couldn't remember if you even had any rots there at that time or not, because we kind of went back.
They were put up in their kennels in the house.
Gotcha. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I just, I'm always like all this. The whole process of a lot of this stuff is still very interesting to me because, I deal with the limited amount of stuff that I've dealt with when it comes to dogs and everything. But as far as taking on any kind of breeding operation or anything like that for myself, that just to me seems still just so way over like my head personally.
It's definitely 100% commitment.
Yeah.
Once you step into that realm, like there is no half-ass in it.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to produce good quality dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, trying to find the right dogs to bring into your bloodline is a headache sometimes, and you got to do your research. Because you can jump on any dog out there, but you don't want to do that.
Yeah. You
want to shop around and find the right mentality and the drive that you're looking for also.
Mm-hmm. And has there been any experience that you've had so far? I mean, you don't have to go into detail if you don't want, but I'm just curious, like, even just out of the couple of litters that you produced so far, has there been anything that's kind of made you just kind of go, what the hell, why the hell did I decide to do this? Or is it kind of one of those things where you still are passionate about it though, and you don't have any qualms about continuing to do it long term?
No, I love every bit of it.
Yeah.
Like my female, she's great at all, like delivery and everything. So there's really no work for her right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the raising the puppies and watching them grow, and then getting videos of people hunting like that just fuels the fire of keep doing it because of the excitement people get of their dogs.
Yeah.
I think that's better than anything, really.
Really? Yeah. That's neat. Like I said, I mean, I'm sure it probably is inspiring to see people having success and having a lot of fun with dogs that you've produced. I can only imagine how rewarding that probably is.
And I mean, I've had to reach out and ask questions to make sure everything's correct, and because I don't want to do something that you produce some dogs with health issues or anything. So I've reached out and asked people for help and questions, and so
yeah. Is there any particular, like, trying to think of the way I need to phrase this question, but how big do you want to kind of expand your operation? I mean, do you have aspirations to kind of keep it a little bit smaller? Do you want to keep incorporating more and more lines to make it like, a pretty decent size, type of deal? Or, I mean,
No, I want to stay a smaller, selective breeding operation. Like, I don't want to be some big one. Like, a waiting list is fine, but it may be 6 months before she's in heat. It's not repetition, because it's not healthy for your dogs, for one. And I mean, sometimes you got pups that you can't get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
And then you raise them up, run them through field trials, and put them in the field.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that, like I said, all these different things are, that pose their own challenges. And as far as, like, some of these other aspects of things, I mean, are there any ultimate goals that you have with your particular, operation, or you just want to just keep doing it for the fun of it? Or?
To always be able to produce completely healthy dogs. That's the complete end result. Mm. Regardless of drive, regardless of anything, and they all need to be healthy. Mm-hmm. And so just you're going to have to go back to that selective breeding so that you know what you can bring into your bloodline and what you need to stay away from. But I see me doing it for a long term, but it's not going to be some big, huge operation. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Well, and so kind of digressing a little bit, or changing, a little bit of a subject here. I mean, what exactly, or when exactly did you discover falconry in general? Like, about what time was it? Time frame? Is it something you've always wanted to do, or?
Okay, so prior to me being born, let me back up that far. My mother and my father ran and owned the largest raptor rehabilitation center in the state of Ohio back in the early 80s. So then, fast forward a few years, here I am. My mom owned a nature center, Wild Wings, in New York. So I've been around birds of prey since I was in diapers. Like, I have pictures of me with kestrels and Harris hawks and standing next to people holding golden eagles because I'm too small to hold them. I mean, I used to help my mom do raptor bird shows at the Ohio State Fair where I'd stand up in the audience, stick a glove up, and the bird would fly across the audience's heads to me in the audience. So I've been around raptors my entire life. Like, my mom was a biologist, my father was a biologist, and like, he was a bird bander, my mom was a bird bander, she was a falconer. So it's just really just in my bloodline. So, but fast forward, I went into the military and stuff, so there's no free time to do any of that. So then I got out of the military, and then after a couple years of that, I finally had a place to set up, get a mew built, and then slowly work my way into getting it, because moving around so much, I mean, having dogs and a bird just wasn't going to cut it. But I've been around birds since before I could walk.
Yeah, I don't think you've ever told me that. Mm-mm. No, that's cool. No, I had no idea.
Like, I know I have pictures at home. I think I was like 2 or 3. I was just barely walking, and they used to tie like a 5-foot string to my belt loop, and I could walk around with my kestrel because it was mine. I was so little, everything was mine. So this kestrel was mine, but they tied it to my belt loop, so if it flew off, it would just kind of flutter around my head and land back on my fist. And then I'd walk around where they were doing bird programs, and just people would see a little kid with a kestrel. So,
yeah, no, there's always a little bit of I don't know, at least that I've noticed anyway, of all the people that I've talked to about this kind of stuff, and that it seems like the people that were either born into it to some degree, they are born with it. There's not much of an in-between. They either, have it ingrained in them and they want to continue on or whatever, or you end up like, with a kid like mine that could care less about it. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's definitely a do or don't sport. Like, you're going to do it or you ain't going to do it. There's really no in-between. And if you're out beating brush and you don't like doing it, you're going to hate every minute of being out there. Mm-hmm. I mean, my oldest is 16, getting ready, or she's 17 now. He'll go out there, but to glance across the field, you just know he's just hating every minute of being out there pushing through briars and stuff. But bless his heart, he's out there at least helping his old man. So, And like my youngest, he's 11, and he'd skip school if I'd let him to just go beat brush for me. I mean, he loves it. Like, he bugs me all the time about when you can be someone's sponsor. I want to be an apprentice. I'm like, get a little bigger. Yeah, he's really, really, really short. So like a red tail is like half his size anyway. So
yeah, I mean, my kid, he's only been out with me like 3 different times, and yeah, like I said, I gave up forever ago, and having him have any long-term interest or anything. And that being said, was it mainly the military and some of the other aspects of your life then that kind of kept you from kind of going ahead and being able to get licensed and stuff and kind of make the jump into doing falconry for yourself?
No, I was married for a long time with no support system, and then I got a divorce so that I could get into falconry.
Gotcha.
You got to have support.
Yeah.
And my fiance now is, well, I mean, she's a month into having her own bird.
I was going to say, she's becoming one herself,
so,
right?
I mean, she's got a red tail, and she's learning along with the bird. So, I mean, it's coming along. So, I mean, the support has to be there, because if there ain't no support for you to go out in the field for 3 hours, 1 day a week, you're not going to do it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely important for sure. And if you don't have quote unquote like support, at least if nothing else, you need to be with someone that isn't going to sit there and hate you for or resent you for it. If nothing else, not necessarily support, but not also necessarily like try and drag you down about it either.
Oh yeah, at least, I mean, support may not be the right word. They tolerate your hobby.
Well,
they tolerate your
might be a better word.
Yeah,
you're right.
They tolerate your hobby. So
yeah,
but no, Brannigan, she's great. She loves beating brush. Now, I mean, she's got her bird. She's chomping at the bit. Like, she'll get there, but she's ready to be hunting. I know it. So
yeah. Well, and it's a process for everybody. I mean,
your first bird's always slow. No matter if your sponsor lives in your house, the first bird's always your learning bird. So, at least in my experience, it has been.
Yeah, I mean, and depending on what your personal experience is, depending on how much of a struggle your first bird is, I mean, some put up more of a challenge, to become a good falconry partner, I think, than others and stuff. But I mean, looking back on it, I mean, I thought I learned a lot with my first bird, and in reality, I really didn't. You
learn the second and third and fourth bird.
It's not really until you start really struggling with like a bad streak of birds that you, I think, really start learning the most amount of stuff personally, but everybody figures all that stuff out for themselves.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm still having, well, not this year, but last year, like after I got this Harris hawk, he just wanted to catch my dogs. Like, I mean, if he, at least once every hunt, if he didn't try to swoop in and smack one of them, we weren't done hunting yet. I mean, but he was young, he was chamber raised and hadn't killed anything, and he was just trying to catch whatever was out there. So, but now this year he's caught on and realizes that the dogs aren't food, and now he works together with them. So,
yeah. Well, and it's interesting with Harris's too. I mean, they either, like you kind of said, they either just get along really well with them or they really don't. And for the ones that seem to be even have any like real remote, like in between gray area of that, at best, like you said, they're gonna let your dogs know when they're not doing what they want. But
I mean, I had a red tail. My male, the red tail smacked him on the nose and then grabbed him by the head, but that was the dog's fault. He just, like, I was trying to get the squirrel from the bird, and my male just kept coming in there, and he tolerated him there for a minute, but then the second time he come in and pecked him or nipped him on the nose, and then the third time he come in, he grabbed him by the head, and I was like, pulled him apart, got the dog away, and damned if he didn't try to come right back, and so I had to hold the dog, and then try to do everything one-handed, trading off one hand. It was interesting, to say the least, with a family of 4 standing off to the side watching all this happen. So.
Yeah, we all go through our little moments, I guess. is the best way you can think of to put it. But
Oh yeah.
well, I mean, going back to dachshunds specifically though for a little bit, part of this series, I don't know if you've really had a chance to listen to the few episodes of this series I've put out yet, but like as far as just some of the things that I've been covering, and we've of course talked about this amongst ourselves, but for the people that haven't been privy to, of course, our conversations, on the phone and everything else. The couple of main topics that I've been discussing with people here lately, for the most part during the series, of course, is the housebreaking aspect of things, number one. And number two, mainly when, like, as a breeder, your opinion is on when the best time to really bring a puppy home is and all that kind of stuff. And so weigh in a little bit, on just some of the different things that you've experienced, like in your time with dachshunds so far. I mean, what your opinions are on both of those topics.
Well, with the housebreaking and crate training and stuff like that, the big thing is to get on a schedule and mediate their water and food intake at first thing in the morning, you get on a schedule, straight out the door. As soon as your alarm goes off, out the door. And then feed them and whatnot throughout the day, but then pick a time in the evening that you cut their food, cut their water off. And then make sure you take them out at least twice before you put them up or you let them in bed or let them run loose for the night. Because, they have a really small bladder, so if you give them drink at 8:30 at night, well, it may be a wet kennel or wet spot on the floor when you get up in the morning, just because 8-9 hours is a long time. Like I get up at 5:15 every morning for my kids to get on the school bus, and as soon as my alarm goes off, you can't hit snooze and expect to go back to sleep because the dogs have all heard the alarm, so they're all four barking. So as soon as you're letting them out, it's like a herd of little wiener dogs running through the house to go outside. So just like mediate water intake and schedule. That's the biggest two that I can say that have worked for me. First time they get let out is 5:20 in the morning, and last time they get let out is 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work. That schedule doesn't work for everybody, but everybody can find their own schedule.
And especially for like newer dogs, or not, I shouldn't say newer, but especially for younger dogs, like more of the pup stage and everything else, are you letting them out like every hour in between all that? Or
10 minutes after they drink water.
Yeah.
At least 10 minutes after they drink water. And then probably every hour and a half, 2 hours, let them out for 20, 30 minutes. At least I can, because I have a small run that's fenced off around my house. But and if they go out and go to the bathroom, come back in, a couple hours later, let them out. But 10 minutes after they drink, because it's not very long, and then they're peeing on the floor. So
Sure. No, that's good stuff. Like I said, I've been trying my best to, I don't think it's bad for people to hear the same repetitive information over and over again, so people can kind of gather their own information and gather a common theme here
and realize it's all the same thing.
But that being said, I've been trying to kind of get slightly differing, viewpoints or angles, from the same question, and it's pretty similar, the same type of vein, with all that. But I haven't talked to anybody yet, though, that has been like, my dachshund consistently never makes mistakes in the house.
No. My male and female, if I'm not paying attention and they run around too long, and I'll find a wet spot on the floor. And my female, she's an excited peer. So if you look at her and she's in the house, she thinks you're going to do something, she pees. So, but then on the other subject, the earlier you can bring the dog home, the better, of course, because you'll have more of that bonding between you and that pup versus a dog that just wants to work, and then you have to really work to bond with it. But my opinion, they're as long as you do a little bit of socialization with dogs that you have in the household already, there really shouldn't be an issue. I brought full-grown Rottweilers that are 3 or 4 years old, and you really have to socialize them. But it can be done. You just have to want to put a little extra. You may have to put a little extra work in it. I mean, bigger dogs might want to play a little rougher with the little dog at first, and the little dog's not going to have it. I mean, or little dog's just going to roll over and be like, okay, you win. I mean, it's one or the other.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely very easy to kind of tell initially, like, the type of dogs that are going to be like dog dominant versus submissive versus, you know, the human dominant, human submissive, and all that kind of stuff. But you know, I'm sure that you've probably talked ad nauseum to different people about this type of stuff also, and doing the research and you know, from your end of things and stuff as well, and you know, I mean, the dog opinions like this kind of stuff is just like falconer opinions. You ask you know, 10 different, you know, breeders or 10 different falconers about, you know, 10 different appearances, you're going to get 100 different answers, you know. So I didn't know, like I said, if there was a particular other preference or any like particular asterisk mark that you would put on any of that kind of stuff, or
other than just gently bringing them in versus just throwing them hardcore into the mix and hoping for the best, because that's usually when you get the worst results. I mean, I know people that have bought 5 and 6 year old dogs that, yeah, you bring them in the house, there might be a little yipping, nipping, and what have you, because they're trying to figure out, who's in charge of the household. And once they figure that out, everything usually falls into place. I mean, yeah, you may get the one that doesn't want to fall into place, but that's in everything. I mean, that's just like a bird. You may get a bird that works, you may get a bird that don't. I mean,
that is very true.
And you get a bird that'll fly over dogs, and you get a bird you think will fly over dogs, and he ends up catching your dogs. So,
yeah, it might be fine that first initial hunt or two just to give you that false sense of security. And then all of a sudden, you know, circumstance here or there changes, and then all of a sudden it's a whole new ball game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and red tails, the 3 that I've flown so far over my dogs, they usually stay up kind of higher in the treetops when the dogs are on the ground, unless there's something out in front of them. My Harris Hawk, he kind of like wants to be down in the mix, and sometimes I'm like, are you going to go for him, or are you not going to go for him? I'm like, where are you looking at? Who are you looking at? So, I mean, it's just, they're weird that way sometimes.
Yeah, they can be. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because I don't know if you heard me and Jared talking about it today, but so it's funny, like he and I have had almost like polar opposite experiences with red tails and Harrises. Like it's like every passage red tail that he's had has been dog aggressive. And like, but every Harris he's had he's not had a single like Harris that's been dog aggressive yet. And then like for me, the red tails that I've flown, they may not necessarily have like particularly liked dogs being in the field with them, but they weren't like dog aggressive.
Yeah, they tolerated them.
Yeah, well, and even if they didn't tolerate them per se, they still weren't like aggressive towards them. You know what I mean? But most of the Harrises that I've flown, though, have all to a T for the most part, except for, of course, the one I'm flying now for a friend. We already knew wasn't dog aggressive, but like every other Harris that I've flown so far, dog aggressive. Like literally, not even a hesitation, would just go straight after, you know, like a dog that I had or whatever.
Yeah, and the smaller the dog, the more gamey it looks. So.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, man. You know, like I said, to each their own on some of the other opinions, but you know, I mean, these are things that I've been saying repeatedly are important for like people to hear and take into consideration whenever they're kind of thinking about a particular breed.
And I mean, there's always those dogs and birds that you get them and it never works out. And like, no matter how hard you try, either that dog will go after your bird, or the bird's going to go after your dog. I mean, and there are those birds and those dogs. I mean, it all depends on how you train the dog and what type of mentality like that bird has. I mean, I don't know if I'd fly a dachshund out under like a 2nd or 3rd year Harris Hawk that ain't ever flown under one or over one.
Yeah, there would have to be some supervised introduction first for sure. Yeah, I mean,
my bird was 12 weeks old when I got him, and I had him around my dogs all the time. He was still catching them. I mean, I was almost to my wit's end, and this season We finally made it all completely happen. Got a rabbit with the dogs, and got a squirrel with the dogs, got a coon with the dogs. So the bird has put 1 and 2 together finally and realizes that the dogs are supposed to be out there and part of the team versus prey.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really important with Harris Hawks. I've touched on it before, but I think the sooner a Harris Hawk can see the dog actually working for it usually makes the biggest difference in whether or not they're going to tolerate them or not.
Well, yeah, and being a young bird, never killed anything really on his own. Like, I managed to get his first kill without the dogs this year. And I think that, like, once he realized what he was really supposed to be catching, then he left the dogs alone. Mm-hmm. Because before that, he was just trying to catch anything and everything that moved because he didn't know what he was supposed to be catching because he was so young. I mean, you're doing little rabbit things in the yard, but it's hard to train a bird on a black or white bunny when there's no black and white bunnies out in the field, but you got black dogs. So, I mean...
Yeah, I don't know. It's a slippery slope, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, and like you said, it's either kind of going to, in general, it's going to kind of work out or it's not, And
it's definitely there's a lot more moving parts when you put dogs on the ground.
For sure.
And now you got to worry about where did the bird go? Where's the dog A, dog B? Well, if you're running more dogs or more birds, did the dog go in a hole? What hole did he go into? Is he going to come out of the hole? Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah.
Hole work is definitely not for the faint of heart. Because once your dog goes in that ground, you're just sitting there hoping and praying that he comes back out the same hole he went in. And I've been very fortunate that I've come home with all my critters.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've talked to some folks that, have unfortunately not had the same luck. And I know for me that would be really tough. Man, that would be tough.
Oh, yeah. 2 days ago, I sat outside of a hole with my fiance and my female running around, my bird sitting 5 feet in a tree for an hour in front of this hole, hoping that my male was going to come back out to finally weigh. And about 35 to 40 minutes into it, I started just paging him, like frantically paging him. And finally, he come out and sigh of relief. But yeah, that is definitely nerve-wracking when they go in the hole. Mm-hmm. Especially when they're in there for more than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that, like I said, if nothing else, I've been trying to do, I mean, I've done quite a few episodes in this series now, and by the time this episode's released, I'm not really sure, how many I will have put out by then or not. But that being said, the general consensus has been the same as far as, a couple of for the most part, with the exception maybe of like one person, they pretty much all said the same thing pretty much unanimously about, the housebreaking aspect of things, and as far as like the other thing, as far as, I mean, it's such a huge varying opinion as far as when the best time to bring, a pup home is, what age and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, there's some people that are like, I'm not bringing a dog home unless they're 8 weeks old. Like, I'm not getting one any older. And then, like, I don't like letting a dog go. Really don't like to let a dog go until 10 weeks. Mm-hmm. But I mean, 8 weeks minimum. Because that just gives them a little bit extra time with the mom. I can run them under some rabbits and stuff. But I mean, its biggest thing is socialization. Like, anybody brings any type of critter home and just throws it in the mix, it's never going to work out. And they're always going to have a bad experience. Yeah. I mean, and with the housebreaking, you really kind of got to treat a dachshund like a puppy of any other dog. Like, they're pretty much, their bladder and their outside routine is just like a puppy would be of a golden retriever or a Rottweiler or something, like on a schedule.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, and
or use those doggy diapers.
Yeah. Yeah, I it still cracks me. I remember whenever you'd said that, Brannigan was talking about, just being so like, oh, that was genius as far as the maxi pad thing or whatever.
Oh, yeah, because she
initially.
uses them on this little dog she has at home, and she's just been washing them. And I was like, hey, John said to use these maxi pad things in it, and you just throw that away and you're good to go. So, yeah, I mean, that was genius.
Yeah, I mean, I can't, like I said, I can't take the credit for coming up with that. That was told to me by, of course, some other people and stuff. But that being said, it's nice to be able to know that you're able to helpfully pass the buck on with some knowledge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some helpful knowledge here and there. But well, and I want to take a minute too and toot your personal horn a little bit, because I mean we've kind of brushed on it a little bit, but I mean I am really happy with how Horace has progressed and stuff, and it has been really helpful for me personally to see the night and day difference between a dog that has that initial introductory training, when it comes to being introduced to rabbits and, being worked from a very young age, on that kind of stuff in preparation for their purpose. And, I will say, I mean, I'm still a fan of the way that you do stuff. I mean, overall, and I don't know how much of it's specific necessarily to him and his own genetics from your breeding and stuff, or whatever the case is, but that being said, I am a fan of his overall habits, tendencies, and his initial drive from some of that early training and stuff. And I mean, I was very happy to get mine whenever I got mine, which was a few months in, with some of that initial training and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I mean, do you think, is there anything that you think that you're going to tweak or change, or have tweaked or changed? Or are you really happy still with the way that you do things personally?
About 80% happy with everything that I do. I am going to change the rabbit run that we have. I'm going to put some holes in it, because I'd like to get a little bit more courage.
Like some pipes and different.
Yeah, I'm going to build a mound and take 8-inch pipe and kind of fish it around through this. It's going to be a pile of gravel, just because then I can pull that pipe out if a dog gets stuck or something while I'm training it. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to build a mound and put a bunch of pipes and stuff going different directions and stuff, so that dog can learn oh, there's a hole here, I can go in. But get them big enough pipes that they can do a U-turn and come back out of them.
Build confidence with the going to ground aspect of things.
Because my male, he's really confident going in, and a few of my pups are, but I think they'd do a little better on that if I had that part of in the facility. I have some tubes and pipes and pallets and stuff, but I mean, when they're little, they can go through them, but once they get a little bigger, the pipes are too small, so then they just stand at the end and bark. Which is fine for some people, but I mean, I'd like my dogs to be able to go in holes. I mean, I like doing hole work. I mean, it's definitely stressful sometimes, but I mean, it benefits a lot. I mean, especially with the Harris Hawk, because he sits and waits at where we're at the hole versus how the other ones did. But that's what I want to change, is I want to do a little more hole, have a area that holes are available for them to go in. Versus just a cardboard tube or something. Yeah. So,
well, I know at the one terrier trials that I went to, they kind of built a makeshift going to ground, kind of like a plywood almost tunnels and stuff, and then they scented or drug a dead coon through those tunnels and stuff, and they had the chamber at the end with a live one, so that when the dog would send its way through the tunnel and get to the end, it would open up, maybe start barking or whatever. So, I think it's cool if you're going to implement that later, it can't hurt, especially if it's going to set up a scenario that, what they're going to really encounter when they're hunting potentially.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because the pups so far that I've had, they'll go in the little 6-inch tube all day long, but then once they get bigger, they can't fit. And then I've noticed once they can't fit, I don't have anything that they can, so then when they get in the woods, they just kind of stay at the whole bark instead of just going in it, and I think that I think that'll help having an area where there's specifically holes for them to go in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. I think that's probably a good idea.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there that don't like the dogs going to ground, but I mean, that's where the bunny's going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
So,
that's true. Yeah, I mean, I've had, like I said earlier, I mean, there's been some horror stories that I've heard, but it seems like the overall productivity aspect of it, you hear about the positives way more than the occasional negative when it comes to the groundwork stuff. But
that's really the reason. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the reason we use dachshunds, because they're meant to go in holes. I mean, if you didn't want to ever do hole work, you get a dog that wouldn't fit in a hole. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah,
because that's what they're bred for, is badger dogs. So I mean, they're meant to go down the ground.
Sure.
So
yeah. For sure. Well, I mean, is there anything else while we're kind of on this topic? And, like a big part of the reason why, like I said, I really want to cover as much as possible, or as many different angles. Is there any other things that, from your point of view, that might be worth, covering about the breed that we haven't, talked about much or anything? Or is there any...
Shop around and look for a breeder that either has hunting dogs, hunts them, or does trials. I mean, in my opinion, if somebody like an active hunter is breeding, they really know what you as a active hunter is looking for. Mm. So, I mean, that's my opinion on that. I mean, just shop around, find the best. I mean, because you're very unlikely you're going to get one out of a pet store that's going to do something you want it to do. I mean, you can buy a couch potato. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, if that's what you want it for, but I mean, yeah, if you want a hunting
dog,
yeah.
I don't suggest looking for a high drive one.
Yeah. I gotcha. Well, let's go ahead and get like one of your favorite, overall like hunting stories then, and then, a piece of advice from you, and then we can probably come close to wrapping this up, man.
Well, this just happened the other day. So I had my female out, Bella, with my Harris hawk and a buddy, Cody. And he'd already caught a squirrel, so it was my turn. So we got the bird out, walking through the woods, and I thought he was going in on a squirrel because he just swooped in on the side of this tree, and it went up in a tree and came back for a second pass. So I run over there, and man, big old coon up in the top of the tree, and I tried to call him down with food, the lure, everything, and he would not come. And like I can remember saying, I don't even want anything to do with this coon, but figured the dog did, so I shook the shit out of this tree. And luckily I looked up in time, because that coon come free falling and about bounced off the top of my head.
That was a funny video. God, that was a funny video.
It took off, and man, my female, she cut in after it, and we cornered it. I mean, I had to dispatch it because, of course, it was probably a 35-pound coon. But in the mix of that, I got the dog on one, like tearing into its front end, the bird's attached to its back end, and then I'm holding on to the middle trying to dispatch this coon. That's probably the best one so far this year. I mean, he's wrestled with some squirrels and stuff and got his ass kicked a few times this year, but I mean, that's probably the best one so far.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one, man. It's not very often that you can have a hunting party, hawking wise, go after a coon and come out, ahead.
Oh, and there was no injuries to anybody, luckily.
Yeah. No, yeah, you got lucky, man.
Like, cause I mean, that thing was mean. Like, I didn't realize, like, I'd never put my hands on one. That thing was vicious.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've cut both my male and female dachshunds on a groundhog before, and they killed it. I mean, they took a few bites, but they got it too. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah, 35-pound. I mean, just to put things into perspective, you saw my female Visually, Shay. She's 35 pounds.
Well, that's 3.5 of my wiener dogs. Yeah, so
exactly.
I mean, but it definitely. I mean, her and Bella and that coon rolled around. I mean, they were locked up couple different times, and I mean, so it was definitely turned into a shit show real fast.
Yeah. No, I'm sure, man. No, and being there in person, and I could tell your blood was up because, I mean, like the last part of that video was just you just like,
Oh, I was out of breath, like, because the knife that I use, it's super dull all the way, but like the very end of it. So trying to dispatch this mean coon with this dull knife, oh god, and a dog tearing into it, the bird on it, it was just a mess. But it got done. We got it done.
Yeah, need to shell out for a nice shiv, man.
Yeah. Well, I use the pocket knife all the time because I got it dull so that if the bird reaches in and grabs it or something, he's not cutting the bird. Right. Or
exactly.
I mean, just the tip is sharp, and I mean a point on it just for rabbits and stuff. I mean, it was like trying to dispatch that coon with a butter knife.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's not something I want to ever go after again.
No. It's not like you were trying to do it, you know.
No, I mean, it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, well, unfortunately, there's only so much control you have whenever the bird and the dogs are out of the box. You know?
Oh yeah, and I mean they worked real good together that time. I mean, once it was dispatched, the bird was eating on one side, the dog was on the other side, and there was no issues between either of them. So I mean, I know he's finally learning.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. No, I mean that's definitely one of those that I'm sure you probably won't forget for a very long time.
No, and especially since I have it on video of the coon about landing on my head. Yeah,
it's
like on YouTube.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I remember you showing me that video, and all of a sudden you look up, you're like, ah!
Oh yeah, like I had to jump flat. I mean, I was flat on my back when I jumped. I like just splatted. It was.
That's hilarious. Well, that's cool, man. Well, let's go ahead and get your piece of advice then. I mean, just in the short time that you've been breeding, and then of course in with falconry and everything, I'm sure there's at least one other piece of advice you can probably think of to pass along to people just from your unique perspective. It could pertain to really anything, but
Well, when you're adding any dog to having with a bird, there is a lot. I mean, that bird and that dog pretty much need to live inside of one another, because if not, you're going to end up with issues. I mean, as much time as you can get your bird and dogs together, the better. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and I'm sure that works with any of the hunting lines. I've just found that with dachshunds, it definitely, the more time that bird can see the dog with you and at your feet, he'll understand that, oh, that's part of the family, not not some weird animal running through the weeds. So
sure.
I mean, and just train.
Yeah. Repetition is the mother of learning for everything.
I mean, what really, I think really I got this lure puller from a guy in Pennsylvania that's got Boondock Outdoors.
Yeah, we both have one from him.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Jeremiah.
I think, yep. Yeah. Jeremiah.
Shout out to Jeremiah.
Yep. I mean, I think that thing is the biggest thing that really helped my bird and dogs come together.
Really?
Yeah, because they would find it. I could cut it loose. Of course, they're going to chase it, but the bird sees all this. So I think that thing really brought everything together for my Harris Hawk and my dogs this year.
Did you have the lure speed just enough so that it was fast enough for both, but not, too fast to, possibly, because dachshunds, whenever they get running too fast, sometimes they can, throw.
Oh, you gotta outrun the dogs.
Yeah.
Like you gotta have it fast enough to outrun the dogs.
Sure.
Especially my female. Harry, I can outrun him on a lower speed. Bella, you better have it all the way up almost to 80 or 90, because I mean, she's so fast. She's ridiculous. Because on GPS, at the end of the day, she'll be 3 or 4 miles further than Harry went, just because how fast and how just back and forth as much as she's moving. I mean, but train.
Cool, man. Oh, is there anything else that you want to add? I mean, go ahead and use this to plug your kennels real quick. I mean, like let everybody know how to get a hold of you and stuff if they're interested in a dog.
Country Critters Kennel in Kentucky. Really, you can look up Brannigan Vaughn on Facebook because she has Facebook. Yeah, we're located in Kentucky, down
Yeah.
there just north of Bowling Green.
I will say, I mean, you do make good dogs. I mean, just from the ones that I've seen so far and everything else, I mean, I've been very happy with Horace, and you know, I mean, I've been able to have the pleasure of seeing your dogs work towards, you know, that field champion status and stuff too, and yeah, I mean, you've got some nice genetics. So, I mean, I think it's important for people to know that, you know.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no
I'm
worries,
trying.
man.
I want to do the best I can for it. So
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Is there anything else that you want to add before we get off here? Or?
no.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we can go ahead and wrap this then, and yeah, we'll you know, we need to see how this other puppy does with all 4 dogs in the house real quick, and then we can, you know, see what's up. So.
All right, that'll work.
All right, man. Thanks for doing this.
All right, bye.